So in this video, we're going to review project 13, where we designed a bank account class in Java. So there's several parts to the project. The first is we want to download the driver class from the GitHub repository. Then we're going to create a class called BankAccount that has the fields listed here, followed by two different constructors that'll have two different behaviors. And then we have 5 required methods with a note that we'll add getter and setter methods as we see fit. Now, once we've done this, we're going to create a test class that will create 3 bank account objects and then do some things with those so that we can verify that our bank account class works correctly. So the first step is to go to the GitHub repository, and there's a lot of different ways to get the Java file that's stored there. My recommendation, though, is that if you're having trouble, just copy the Java code, and then we can copy this into an Eclipse class. So the class is called Bank13. So we'll open up Eclipse. We'll create a package for our project. So I'll say new package. We'll call this project 13 bank. And then inside this package, I'm going to create a new class. And I believe it was called Bank13. And I'm going to leave the package declaration up at the top, but everything else I'm going to overwrite with the code from GitHub. And notice that already had a package declaration. It doesn't match what I'm using, so I'm going to delete that. Now we have a working class here. You won't always be given a working main method to start off with. Usually you'll have to do some work to implement some parts of the project before your driver class will work. But here I can just say run, and you'll notice that it does print something. Now it doesn't do anything because there's no bank account class yet. So I'll create the bank account class. So here I have my empty class. And the first thing you want to do when you have a class is add the fields, the attributes, the variables. Add those first, because then Eclipse will be able to do a lot of the work for you. According to the directions, we need to have an owner's name, which will be a string. We'll have an account number, which will be an int. We'll have a balance, which will be a double. And then finally, we have a static private int, account count. And it's implicit that these are private, but just to be clear, I'm going to add private to each of those. So now I have my attributes. The static keyword means that this particular variable is going to be shared by all the objects of this class. Each object will get its own copy of the 3 non-static variables, but the static variable, there's 1 copy. So whatever the value is, all the objects can see that. And you'll see in our constructor how we're going to use that. So the directions tell us to assign an account number in both constructors. The 2 constructors we have, one will have the owner's name as a parameter with a balance of 0. Then we'll have another with the owner's name and an initial balance as the parameter. So let's go to source, create constructor using field. We're going to have one with the name and the balance. We're not going to allow them to set the account number. So now here I have one of the bank accounts. And then what I want to do is set the account number, and the directions say to add 1000 to account count. And then I don't want to give the next account I create the same number, so I'm going to increment account count. And what that will do is increment account count. All the objects share that. So when I create a new object, it'll see the current value of account count, and it'll add that to 1000 to get the new account number. And then we also need another constructor that doesn't take a balance. It sets the balance to 0. So I'll make a copy of this one. I'll delete the account balance as a parameter and set the initial balance to 0. So now I should be able to create some bank accounts. So let me make sure this is saved. It is. So now I'll go to my bank account class and I'll create 3 bank accounts. So I'll create 3 bank account records, and I'm going to create the 3 objects first, and then I'll go in and fill the parameters. So the first one has a balance of 10,000. The next one has a balance of 0. We don't actually need to pass 0 as a parameter. That's the default value for the balance. And then we have a final account with a $500 balance. Now, every class you write should include a toString method. Ours doesn't yet. So if I try to print these classes, or I should say these objects, I'm going to get some weird output. And so you can see I get this, and that's a telltale sign that you have not yet implemented a toString method. Fortunately, Eclipse is very accommodating and will do that for us. So I'll say source, generate toString. I want to have the owner's name, the account number, the account balance, and I'll say generate. The result I get here may not be exactly what I'm looking for. So for example, I don't want to say bank account. I know it's a bank account. And maybe I want to put the account number first. That's not a problem at all. I can rearrange this in any way I choose. So we'll put the account number first, and we actually won't even say account number. We'll just print that out. And then we'll print the owner's name. We'll do a colon and then a space, the owner's name, and then we'll put the account balance like this. And it really is up to you how you want to format this. There's no one right or wrong way. And even in this case, it might have been quicker just to generate this myself. Or just going with the automatically generated one would still give me what I'm looking for. So as you can see, we print the account number, the owner, and the balance. So I think that's a reasonable way to do this. So if you're given sample output, maybe you want to try it a little harder than I did to match what's there. But again, as long as you meet the requirements that are specified, that's sufficient for the assignment. And in general, whenever you're writing a program, you just want to meet the requirements and then you consider yourself done. We can think about getters and setters here for our bank account class. So let's let Eclipse generate some of those for us. Now, obviously account count, we don't want to ever touch that. That's updated in the constructor. The only time we want to change that value is in the constructor, so I'm not going to do anything with that. The account balance, we're only going to get that balance. We don't want to have a way to set that balance, at least directly. Now, when I say that, obviously if you have a bank account, it's possible for you to change the balance of your bank account. However, you can't do it by calling up the bank and saying set account balance to $1 million. If you want that account balance to change, you want to deposit money. Or if the bank wants it to change, I guess they would call withdraw money. So I think I'm actually going to go ahead and create a setter, but I'm going to rename it once it's created. For the account number, that's set in stone. We're not going to allow you to change that. And then the owner's name, I think it makes sense to allow the owner's name to change if for some reason the account was transferred, or if it's owned by a corporation that changes its name. There's a lot of different options there. So I think these are all reasonable. And then again, remember for set account balance, we're actually going to change that name. In fact, we're going to deposit an amount. And now we actually don't need the this on account balance, but we'll add the amount to the account balance. And then we can make a copy of that for our withdraw method. And the only difference is we're going to subtract. And I actually think it might be a good idea to have a get account count. We can't change it, but the bank may want to know how many accounts they have. So I think that's reasonable. So I will go ahead and change what I said before. We'll have that. Notice that these are not really setter methods anymore for the account balance. Deposit and withdraw change the account balance, but they do not allow you to set it. Now you could, if you wanted to, set it to any value by calling get account balance, figuring out whether you needed to deposit or withdraw to get to that, and then calculate what the amount is to get to your goal. Certainly you can do that. But the point here is that instead of allowing the client to just set the value to whatever they want, they're going to call a method that indicates some behavior. And of course, in an actual bank account, when you deposit, they don't just add some amount to your account. They also check to make sure that you're giving them cash, that you're depositing a check, you're doing a transfer. There's some way that they can verify that this amount is the amount that they should be adding. So that's the purpose of having this and not just a plain setter with no values. And now, actually, now that I have these getters and setters, I think that I am done with this class because I have the get balance, the deposit, the withdraw, get account, count, and the toString. So they're all there. Yeah. So now it's just a matter of filling in the test. So I'm displaying them. So I'm going to say account 1, deposit 500, and then in account 2, I'm going to deposit 7,500. From account 3, I'm going to withdraw 100. I'm also going to withdraw from account 1, and there I'll withdraw $2,000. And then finally, I'm going to deposit 1,000 in account 2. So I will copy this line, and that should meet those deposit 500 in account 1, deposit 7,500 in account 2, withdraw 100 from account 3, withdraw 2,000 from account 1, and deposit 1,000 in account 2. So then finally, I'm going to want to print those accounts again, so I'll copy and paste those. And I will run my code. And you can see that the results of the transactions I did are listed. Now, one little piece of concern I had was that these two values are the same. That's just a coincidence because of the arithmetic involved in the deposits and withdrawals. So that was, I think that that's fine. Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to change that to 1 and notice that now they have a separate account. So it's always good when you see something weird like that to convince yourself that that's correct. Okay, and so with that, I think that completes activity 13. If I wanted to submit this, I could right click on the package name, show in System Explorer. That shows me all my packages, and then scroll down to the bank package, and I can compress the zip file, or depending on the operating system you're using, there should be some option to compress, zip, or something the file. Zip that up, and then you can submit that with your document.